I have found myself navigating some incredibly emotional terrain lately, and I have been seeking out advice from others who have tread a similar path. You see, my ex-husband did something that completely shattered my world. He cheated on me and left for another person. The affair partner became his priority, and there I was, left in a state of utter heartbreak and humiliation. I felt like my whole life had been turned upside down, and I didn't know where to turn or how to put the pieces back together. In the midst of this personal upheaval, I attempted everything I could think of to salvage our marriage. I even partook in what people refer to as the pick-me dance, the desperate attempts to prove to him that I was the better choice and that our family was worth preserving. I found myself going to great lengths to win him back, eyes filled with tears, heart brimming with sorrow, doing whatever I could imagine. Yet, despite my earnest efforts and fervent hopes, nothing seemed to bring him back. It was as though he had already mentally checked out of our life together, leaving a hollow echo in his place. The decision was ultimately his, and he made it clear by walking away, leaving me to face the reality of a life and future I had never planned for nor wanted. The period that followed was tough. I grappled with a whirlpool of emotions, rage, sorrow, betrayal, and a deep sense of loss. I had been so certain of our love and commitment, and to realize that it could unravel so swiftly was something I struggled to comprehend. Facing the world felt daunting, with the whispers of why couldn't she keep her husband sometimes feeling louder than any words of comfort I received. Amidst all this emotional chaos, I found that what wounded me the most was the humiliation, the feeling that I had somehow failed. However, as time went on, I began to recognize that his decisions and actions were not a reflection of my worth. It was easier said than done, though, with those thoughts often lurking in the back of my mind. Rebuilding myself was not an overnight transformation. It required strength I wasn't sure I possessed, and slowly, I began to gather the scattered pieces of my life. Battling the shadows of humiliation took immense courage, but each small step I took was a step towards newfound resilience. However, while I was attempting to piece together a new reality, there was still legal and familial matters to contend with. My husband, determined to assert his parental rights, wanted to split everything 50-50. This included sharing custody of our children equally, a notion that stunned me initially. Even though he had broken the vows and our lives, he still wanted to maintain this semblance of balance on paper. However, what neither he nor the court documents could truly capture was the desires and feelings of our children. They were caught in the middle, confused and hurt by the abrupt change in their lives. Neither of them wanted to spend alternate weeks in a different home or pretend everything was normal with a father they felt had betrayed them. They were adamant about their wishes, expressing a clear refusal to meet their father or visit his new place. In their youthful minds, the concept of choosing one parent over the other was unbearable, yet they simply could not fathom being with him after everything that had happened. I understood their standpoint deeply. They were only kids, trying to make sense of a situation that, as adults, we ourselves struggled to grasp. It hurt to see them placing themselves in a position to make such complex adult decisions. But being their mother, how could I possibly force them to comply with something so emotionally draining? Their voices, their feelings needed to be heard, needed to guide what was genuinely best for them. Amidst court proceedings and stern lawyers, what continued to resonate throughout was their unwavering choice, that they were comfortable with the familiarity, the safety of remaining primarily with me. They craved a semblance of stability that they felt my home provided. They needed to heal, just as I did, and imposing a rigid custody arrangement would be counterproductive to that healing process. Back and forth, the court discussions went, with both sides arguing, negotiating custody, and haggling over child support amounts. Amid the tension, one thing became increasingly clear. The heart has reasons that reason itself does not know. It was not merely about splitting time or resources equally. It was about truly understanding what was required to nurture two young spirits who had been unexpectedly thrust into the stormy seas of their parents' failed marriage. There were moments of relief for them, though minimal, in knowing that they could express their wishes without the weight of obligation looming over them. Ultimately, the custody battle was settled through both legal agreements and a mutual understanding that their happiness and well-being had to take precedence. In the end, the court respected their choice, allowing us to move forward with the hope of building a world where their voices never felt overshadowed by adult disputes. Giving credit where it was due, my ex-husband did not just disappear. Even after all that unraveled, he attempted to keep reaching out to our children. Despite his initial endeavors to find time within the new structure of our altered family life, my children had resolutely decided to cut him off. They had seen the chaos, the heartbreak, and felt the repercussions of our falling apart too intimately. It was their decision, and their choice was to have a step back from projecting any image other than that which they were willing to embrace. In the aftermath of our separation, my ex eventually parted ways with the woman he left me for. I suppose, on some level, it must have been difficult for him as well, to navigate through the tainted remnants of a relationship birthed from infidelity. Moving forward, he found love again with another woman, settling into a newer chapter and expanding his family significantly. He went on to have 5 more children with his new partner, and from what I heard through the grapevine, they were flourishing. Word would occasionally trickle down from my in-laws about how they spoke of this extended family. My children, meanwhile, remained adamant in their initial stance, not wanting interaction with their dad or his new life. The fresh memories of pain and betrayal seemed to keep their wishes firmly steered towards a safer distance. Interestingly, his children from his second marriage knew about mine. It was not a secret on that end, nor was it glossed over. Still, even in knowing the full story, they chose to stay clear of intermingling family ties. Happiness for them meant maintaining the status quo within the frameworks they were already comfortable in, forging a dynamic solely centered around their immediate family structure. However, change is indeed the only constant, and as time worked its magic, healing certain wounds while fading others, my kids began to have a change of heart. Recent conversations at home started to pivot towards the idea of reconnecting with their father, a man who once stood at the center of our family. Perhaps it was the gap left unfilled by a familial bond, or simply a new perspective gained over the years. Whatever the reason, their shared consensus was clear. They wanted to bridge the gap, to attempt forming a relationship not only with their father, but with his new family as well. Despite the initial turbulence and the silent years that followed, they reached out with an olive branch. Their endeavor was earnest, filled with hope and a touch of understandable apprehension. They hesitated, but eventually took that bold step, crafting a thoughtful approach when reaching out to their father. My ex listened, but his response, though void of anger or harshness, seemed definitive. He expressed love for them, affirming that part of their shared past, but stated that he could not see how they could fit into the current life he had established. The well-being and understanding of his new family took precedence, and while all his children were aware of each other's existence, his words alluded to maintaining a respectful distance, hinting at a protective stance for his new family. It was as if he believed integrating these fragmented parts of his life might disrupt the harmony he has now. Now keep in mind that I essentially became a single mom, handling everything life threw at us. While my ex did fulfill his duty of paying child support, it was short-lived, barely scratching the surface of financial support needed over the years. Despite everything, my children bravely chose to ignore their father's wishes and reached out once more. They took a chance, seeking connection, reaching out sincerely to their newfound siblings. Unfortunately, their attempt was met with polite refusals, the other siblings choosing to shut down any budding relationship. In one sense, I understand the hesitation. They were introduced to our history in kind but firm narratives by their in-laws, leaving no room for misconceptions. All of his kids, now adults, were fully aware of our side of the story. Yet, the door remained closed, leaving my children on the outskirts of a family they once imagined being a part of. This situation leaves me feeling like my ex should step up, be the adult, and mend the fractured relationships, yet he stays aloof, protective of his peaceful new life. As I reflect on everything, I can't help but wonder if I am wrong to feel hurt by these circumstances. He left us when we needed him most, and although my children chose to distance themselves, they were just kids trying to make sense of the chaos. I can't shake this feeling of betrayal, wishing he could be the bigger person now. I yearn for him to bridge the gap he widened, for the sake of our children and the emotional scars that linger. Every rejected attempt only deepens this lingering ache within me.